Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's basketball betting podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm Maria Marino. So psyched to be joined once again by Action Network writer Jim Turvey at Turvey Bets on Twitter and the Action app. Jim, how's it going?
Doing well. Glad we got some lines out. We are gonna have to do, some funky projections and guessing games and all that. But no, we got lines out. We're full steam ahead. Love to see it.
Yeah, we are rolling. We got lines out on a Thursday evening this time, which is fun. And we are going to be talking about the Friday slate, Friday, July 7th. I hope you had a great 4th. We did not do a pod earlier this week because of the holiday, but we are back. And it is a 4-game slate. All of these games will be available on Ion TV. And Jim Turvey, as if I expected anything less, has thoughts and leans and picks pretty much on every game. So let's just get right into it. The first game on tap, the Fever visiting the Mystics, who are favored by 3.5. That's at 7 Eastern. So I'll just set the stage a little bit. The Fever have lost 5 in a row, even though they have been playing pretty well. I mean, that's a little misleading. 2 of those losses were against the Aces. 3 of the 5 were single-digit losses. And then on the injury front, just a couple of notes. Elena Delle Donne and Natasha Cloud, both questionable with ankle injuries. Shakira Austin, of course, is still out. We had a trade earlier this week between these 2 teams. So Queen Egbo should be available for the Mystics. She was traded for Amanda Zahui B. Washington coming off losses to Dallas and Atlanta. So what do you think, Jim?
Yeah, so this to me is easily the most fun game to kind of prognosticate of the night. In part because it's by far the most chaotic. So there's a lot we don't know right now, right? Like you mentioned, the Mystics have a lot of injuries. They had Shakira Austin's been out for a while. That Queen Egbo move, awesome pickup. But she's not Shakira Austin, so they're going to be missing Shakira Austin. Elena Delle Donne missed last game, is now questionable for tomorrow, and Natasha Cloud, who played last game, is now also questionable. So we have lots of moving parts here. Then we have to think about, like you said, the fact that the Fever have lost 5 straight, but they've really hung around in a lot of these games. So where I'm going with my pick is I like Indiana plus 3.5. Like I said, this line is going to be moving all over the place with injury news. But the reason I like to grab the points here is a couple of reasons. First of all, like you just said, the Fever have lost 5 in a row. But this Fever team we've seen all year, the problem isn't that they're going blown out. That's not the Fever's issue this season. This season, it's these tight losses. So even if, maybe a Cloud plays and not EDD, or EDD but not Cloud, and they have an off night, I think grabbing the points in general isn't a terrible idea. But even more so, I think there is the potential for this line to move far more towards the Fever than it is to move towards the Mystics. I think if EDD and Cloud play, you're looking at something like 6.5. So that's not great if you bet the Fever 5.5 or at plus 3.5, but it's also not the end of the world. If neither play, I think the Fever could almost be favored here. We saw what the Mystics looked like without Austin and EDD last game. They really scuffled on offense. A little bit of that was some bad shooting luck. They went 4 of 25 from 3. But part of that is if you don't have those strong interior presences in EDD and Shakira Austin, teams are just going to load up on the perimeter and say, we're not going to let you beat us there. So, Ariel Atkins and Brittany Sykes, who are 2 players that, I'll be eyeing their player props for tomorrow. The books are probably going to be onto it. It's the most obvious 2 players to pick up the slack in terms of scoring. But they're going to get a lot of the attention if 3/5 of the starting lineup is out. So I'm going to grab the points with Indiana here, but I'm going to be watching this game like a hawk. I'm going to really be trying to watch for injury news, and overall just kind of seeing. This is another fun game. We've only been without EDD for 1 game, so it's always fun to see how these teams do without their star player. So I think my favorite pick is the Fever plus 2.5 right now, but I do also lean a little bit to the over. That may be surprising given the Mystics offense last game. But that, like I said, some of that was bad shooting luck, and this Fever defense is just not really that good. So, whereas their offense has kind of come around. So I lean towards the over here. I like the 3.5, but really this is just kind of a fun game to talk about and think about right now, because there's so many moving parts, kind of like the ones you led in with, and also all the injury ones as well.
Right. Well, and it's great to know that you're leaning the side of the Fever anyway, because if we do get word that Deladon and or Cloud are out, or potentially just understanding that they're not 100%, that could affect some line movement, and you'll feel pretty good because it's only going
Definitely.
to narrow that gap. And like you said, Indiana could end up even being favored in this one by the time things tip off at 7 Eastern. So yeah, the Fever, they've been an exciting team to watch. They've definitely taken a step forward this season. We know how great Aaliyah Boston is playing. She's an all-star. So this could be a really good opportunity for them just to get back on track. And, they're the type of team that will take advantage if, you're not bringing your A game. And this could be a vulnerable spot for the Mystics. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Since we got a lot of action, I want to keep it moving. We got the Dream at the Sky. Sky are favored by 1.5 currently. That's at 8 Eastern. By the way, no more James Wade. He has moved on. He will become a Raptors assistant coach. Both of these teams, though, are on 3-game win streaks. The Dream and the Sky. And it's funny when there's a coaching change. We've now had 2 coaching changes, 2 very different circumstances in the WNBA so far this season. But, sometimes that can galvanize a team. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, so when we were thinking we might have to be guessing lines, I always try and see where I think things will end up. I had this at the Sky -1.5, and so this app opened up Sky -1, and it's now saying Sky 1.5. So I think this number should stay right around here. Now, guessing where we think the line will be versus, where we want to bet isn't always the same thing, right? So if this stays at Dream +1.5, I think I'm gonna be on the Dream. It's a team that's, to me, of the 2 with the 3-game win streaks, I believe this Dream team a little bit more. This is a team I was high on in the preseason, so maybe some of it is a little bit of confirmation bias as I see the things they want to unfolding before me. But yeah, so Ryan Howard, she looks really, she was clearly upset by that All-Star snub. She's come out absolutely firing guns ablaze, and she's looking outstanding. And this is a team that, offensively, they've done a lot more this season. They've impressed me on that end. It's the other side, the defense, that has been way worse than I expected. And to me, that's the side of things that, it's a little more effort driven. So if they start to kind of, get annoyed as a team and kind of be like, hey, we shouldn't be a 5-8 team. You're right. Now, 3 straight games, keep showing us, that you're a better team than you started the season. I think they can make that turnaround there. So the rest advantage is a little bit towards Chicago. They've had about 5 days off. Atlanta played on Wednesday. So if you're a bettor who, relies heavily on rest, and that's something that's really, you found an edge on that, maybe roll with that. But personally, I'm going to go with the team that I think is the superior team, even if they're on the road and at a slight disadvantage in terms of rest. And I like either grabbing the 1.5 or the money line with the Dream on Friday.
Believing in the Dream, yeah, you mentioned Ryan being pissed about that All-Star snub. I believe after the announcement of the reserves, that's when she came out and had 43 points against the Sparks,
Yeah,
which was pretty wild. I mean, she has been a little bit up and down this season for sure, but it was just a really good reminder of what she's capable of. And look, one of these teams is due, obviously. And I could definitely see it being the Sky here, due for a bit of regression. Should be a great game though. And the Sky team, it's just hard. I think, like I said, having a coaching change can galvanize you, but at the same time, there's a little bit of uncertainty here moving forward. Kalia Copper, I think, is going to be a free agent. So it's just like you start thinking about, where's the season going? And you can get a little distracted in that sense. Whereas I think Atlanta is still very much like full steam ahead as far as like, we're trying to get into the playoffs, and like, we know who we are type of a situation. But let's go to the next game, which is also an 8:00 Eastern tip. We got a little rematch here between the Aces and the Wings. So this was a game that was played on Wednesday in Las Vegas, and it was a good one. The Aces end up pulling away and beating the Wings 89-82. But, the Wings were in the lead for pretty much the whole game. Kelsey Plum did not play, reportedly remains questionable for Friday with a non-COVID illness. So I'm curious how you're going to attack this one. And, as far as the spread is concerned, it's kind of hard, in my opinion, to predict, because you could see this being, a situation where the Aces kind of correct their, sort of mistakes and just blow out the Wings, because the Wings have been kind of inconsistent. But then on the other hand, you could see, well, the Wings are back at home. Maybe they kind of build on what they figured out in the game prior. If I had to, I would lean Aces just because they've been so dominant. But it is still a pretty big point spread, double digits. So are you going to stay away from that one?
I am a little bit. So I'm a little surprised where this spread opened up, actually, to be honest. So it closed 2.5 in Las Vegas when they played 2 days ago. I have that right, correct? Sorry, I'm now realizing I think I wrote something wrong in my notes. So they played in Las Vegas when they played on Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it closed 12.5 when they were in Las Vegas, and now it's 10.5. Usually you see a bigger flip in terms of home court advantage. Now the Wings haven't always had the best home court advantage, but I think it's more than 2. And, we see Kelsey Plum is still questionable.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm leaning towards the Wings just because of that number. I mean, they like you said, the Aces, they didn't even cover when they were at home. So I think that this line's being maybe a little bit rude to Dallas. But I'm also terrified to bet against the Aces. I'll be honest, the best team maybe in the last decade of the sport. So it's a little scary. So I probably would, if push came to shove, I might put a little bit on the Wings. But what I'm actually looking towards more is these are two teams, great pace, great overs. I think with the travel time in between, there might be a little bit of a slog. So I'm really looking towards the second half for an over. So it's not available at every book, but if you look around out there, you can find it. So I'm gonna be looking at the second half over. It should be around, the overall over right now is 175.5. So it should be something in the high 80s. Always following the app, because I don't think the exact line's out right now, but that second half over is going to be a look that I'm probably going to be betting as these two, kind of push each other down the stretch and rack up the points there down the line.
Yeah, at last check on FanDuel, the game total 175.5. And the Aces being favored by 10.5. I just wonder, have the Aces become like sort of a public enough team that people will just bet them, and it maybe moves that line and it trickles up a little bit. And if that's the case, I definitely like the Wings to cover. And as it is, to your point, it's just a lot of points, but once again, it's like, do I dare fade the Aces, because
it's scary. It's really scary.
They've just been so dominant. We've talked about just, point differential over 15 on average that they're winning games by. And more than that, it's just like the Wings, I don't fully trust them. They have a couple of all-stars, but they have the ability to score in bunches, but at times they just don't look like the same team. So but we talked about this last week, Sean Kerner and I, because I think we had all 3 games on last Friday were like all rematches from games like 2 days ago. And that's been a trend with the schedule this year, where you're kind of getting another crack at a team pretty much immediately. And I think there's some pros and cons to that. I think it can be a real challenge to play a team twice in a row, except maybe if you're the Aces. That's really the only exception. But it is interesting to kind of get that almost like immediate that immediate chance to try to redeem yourself. So, all right, one more game on Friday, July 7th, and it's the Mercury at the Lynx. Lynx are favored by 2.5. That's also an 8:00 Eastern tip. So I was at the Liberty game on Wednesday when For a second there, I thought that, the Mercury might pull off an upset, which would have been devastating to me because I was at one other Liberty game so far this season, and that was when they lost to Atlanta. So I was like, oh my God, if they lose again, I'm
You're
like,
the
okay, I
reason.
just can't show my face in Brooklyn for the foreseeable future. But that being said, the Mercury, like, they've been playing better. It's still a little questionable. I was thinking about this, like, it's so strange to me. I was sitting there at Barclays Center. It's weird for me to watch a team with Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner struggle. Like, it's just like it's almost just feels like this alternate universe. And I don't know if that's all due to missing Skylar Diggins-Smith. I don't know. Obviously BG has had to work her way back, and Diana hasn't been fully healthy all the time, but it's just weird. Meanwhile, the Lynx have gone from a team that I think people were questioning if there was like some tanking going on to all of a sudden like just looking so much better. They've won 4 in a row, albeit 2 were against the Storm. They did have a 10-point win over the Mercury, but they got a big win over Indiana on Wednesday. And Nafisa Collier has just been balling out. I mean, she's playing like an MVP. She scored 30 plus in 3 of those 4 wins. The game against the Mercury is when she had just 16. So with that, Jim, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a great lead in because it is so true because I think the Mercury look at the Lynx right now and it kind of gives them hope, right? It's like that's the team that 2 seconds ago was the worst team in the league, and now they're almost 500 and right in the playoff picture. And you're right. It is really strange to see a team like Phoenix that has a couple of those big names and just isn't getting it done. Like they do look like the worst team in the league right now. I think it speaks to I think first of all, it speaks to the league depth right now. I think there's really, really good talent in the league. That does not surprise. That's something everyone knows who follows the league, but it really is it's like front and center when you have a team that has Brittany Griner on the roster and it can be this bad. It's like, man, this is a league in a very good spot when it comes to the talent right now. And I'm actually going to be looking to fade the Mercury. This Lynx number to me at 2.5 is a steal. It opened 1.5 to 2.5. I would not be surprised if by the time people are listening to this is almost up to like 4.5 because I see the Lynx as a couple points better than the Mercury, and they're at home. One thing that I find very interesting is Diana Taurasi is actually going to be out for rest on Friday, and I'm curious if that helps or hurts the Mercury when it comes to their line. I love Taurasi. She's one of the best players of all time. It's been a little rough at times this season. If you're watching these games, she's on the offensive side of things. She's not really moving a whole lot when she doesn't have the ball. She can still shoot it with the best of them, but I'm not entirely sure how much she's propelling the offense. And then on defense, it's a couple years now that she's been, not first team all defense, we'll put it that way. But I think it'll be interesting to see, how the market respects Diana Taurasi being out because it's such a big name. But I actually think in theory it might help them. So we'll see. But I definitely like the Lynx at this 2.5 number. I think I'd take it up to 4.5. I think it will probably get out to about that number. And ironically, so this is the game I probably have the most bets on. We started with the game I thought was the most interesting. This is the game I have the most bets on. I have 3 player props in this game actually, and 2 of them ironically are for Mercury overs, even though I'm fading the Mercury. I had a player prop forecast article go out on Action this week. I suggest you take a look. But one of the plays I highlighted there was Brittany Griner's points. Ever since Mercury coach Nikki Blue started, they've really been going to Brittany Griner a lot. You'll notice her field goal attempts are up, her minutes are even up a little bit. And so against the defense like the Lynx that it is very run of the mill and it's without their starting center for most of the last and is starting a rookie center right now. It just seems prime for Brittany Griner to have a huge game. So even though I do like the Lynx in this game, I'm going to be looking at Brittany Griner's points over. And then if Taurasi's out, I'm going to be looking at Shug Sutton's assists over. She's done a really good job filling in for Taurasi when she was out last time. The books might sniff this out. Taurasi was out about 3 times already, so they may know that Sutton is kind of the go-to playmaker when she's out. But if they hang something like 5.5, I'll be jumping on that. 6.5, I'll kind of look at where the juice is and stuff like that. But I think that's a potentially good look. And then just finally, another one that I don't know if we'll get again, but Lindsay Allen has been outstanding for the Lynx as she's been on this as the Lynx have been on this winning streak. And you can look at her assist prop. If it's 5.5, I'm going to take that over as well. She's cleared that in 5 straight. So a couple player props for you there, as well as a Lynx side. So that's the game that I'm going to probably have the most action on. So, I'll be watching that one.
Yeah. And, I think this is more about the Lynx right now than it is the Mercury. And I think they just have looked so much better, so much more confident. Like you said, they're playing at home. Nafisa is just, like I said, propelling them, and her teammates are getting confidence from her. So it's just been a really fun progression for them this season. And then as far as DT, it's like, say it ain't so. Like I know, I see with my own eyes that like she just doesn't quite look the same. And like we forget, I think. I mean, she is 41 years old. Like,
yeah.
I mean, but what's hard, I think, is 2 years ago the Mercury are in the finals, and it's just changed so much. And you don't want to see Diana end her career on being potentially in last place in the league. So I do hope that she starts picking it back up, and whether it's feeling better or I don't know what, but you kind of hate to see it, but she's one of the greatest of all time. So she'll be okay, but it's just definitely been a change this year in the league. Good that you threw in some prop suggestions. A reminder, make sure you follow Jim Turvey at Turvey Bets, both on Twitter and in the Action app. He will track all the bets, so you don't have to worry about keeping track. And it's also a great way for anyone listening to just keep track of their own bets and what they have going on. This is Buckets. We thank you for listening. We're presented by FanDuel. We've been doing episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays every week. Next week, we'll be here on Tuesday with a new episode, but then there won't be any games Friday as we get ready for the All-Star game on Saturday. So just the one episode to look forward to next week. If you feel so inclined, rate and review this podcast, 5 stars, preferably, and you could win some Action swag or a free subscription to Action Pro. Jim, I can't thank you enough once again for joining us here on Buckets.
Well, thanks as always. Always a pleasure.
All right. We're all going to be getting buckets on Friday. Thanks again.